Welcome to 2019. One of my favorite quotes is growth means change. And obviously we can change any day and any time that we decide to. But what I love about a new year is the reminder to change, to set goals, to start over, to do better, to be better. I want to invite you and your friends to travel with me as we navigate through 2019 together. As we change for the better and grow and teach our families how to do the same. It's going to be a great year, regardless of the challenges that we face. Along the way, we're going to learn to find purpose and attach meaning to the good, the bad, and the ugly in our lives. Life is an adventure, and what a loss it would be if we didn't find purpose or grow through our challenges. So I hope you'll join me on this journey. If you haven't listened to previous podcasts, I would encourage you to start at the beginning so you can hear my story and see where I'm coming from. Before I launch into today's podcast, I just have to tell you that my experiences as a teen life coach are literally changing me and hopefully changing them as well. Yes, it's a hard time to be a teen. But these kids are the best of the best. I wish I could tell you about each of them. I have fallen in love with them. I think about them constantly. I pray for them. My husband prays for them. I just hope that I can be a positive influence in their lives. A lot of people ask, what is the gist of what we talk about? And I would say that all roads lead back to personal responsibility for our attitudes and our behaviors. If they and we can wrap our minds and hearts around that, we'll be just fine. As the mom of one of my teens recently said to some other ladies, my child has so much crud pushed in her brain from social media, the kids at school, her friends, TV, and everything else that I want to push Becky into her brain as well. Well, that made my day. I just want to try to make a difference. I'm probably not teaching the teens anything differently than their parents are, but I come from a different angle and there isn't any history or resentment built up like there often is with parents. It's like being a grandparent. You can just come in with the love and sprinkle in some guidance. It's been so rewarding and I truly love it. Okay, now for today's podcast. I want to revisit personal responsibility. This podcast piggybacks off the second podcast, so you may want to go and listen to that now if you don't remember it. Anyway, do you remember the moment that you crossed the line and you became your own worst enemy, when you became a part of the problem instead of the solution? My mom used to always say, you're either a part of the problem or a part of the solution. There have been times in my life when I have been offended. Some of those times I've carried that offense around with me because I knew I was undeserving of what someone did or said. I would even perk up whenever I heard something negative about that person, as it was further evidence that I was right or justified. It wasn't long before I became consumed with the offense. And then I woke up realizing that the offender was no longer the enemy. I had crossed the line. I had become my own worst enemy. I became a part of the problem. I had made things worse for myself. It stunted my happiness and slowed down my growth. We've all seen it. An athlete or coach receives a penalty or an illegal hit that doesn't get detected. He is so upset that he lashes out at another player or the ref and gets ejected from the game. He crossed the line. Initially, the referee or opposing player was the enemy. Unfortunately, he became his own worst enemy with his inappropriate behavior, and the consequences became worse than they were before. He was now the problem. Okay, let's take this example. A husband and a wife are at odds. Their marriage is volatile. Years of hurt feelings have built up. Feelings of neglect have surfaced. They don't seem to have any commonality anymore, and therefore one or the other decides to step out and have an affair or turn to an unhealthy vice, leading to a loss of trust, integrity, and relationships with family members, causing tension, devastation, and immeasurable pain. As the negative consequences of their decision unfolds, the unfaithful or reckless one realizes that their spouse is no longer the enemy. They crossed the line. They became a part of the problem, not the solution. They became their own worst enemy. We all know someone, maybe even ourselves, who've experienced divorce, abuse, depression, anxiety, being bullied, loneliness, or emotional hurt from not feeling accepted for who we are, or any number of experiences. It can be painful, demoralizing, and devastating. However, we become a part of the problem and make it worse by playing the role of a victim and trying to escape the pain by turning to drugs, alcohol, excessive gaming, overspending, irresponsibility, porn, or rebelling in some destructive way in an effort to cope. The consequences of any of those vices are not good and lead to further destruction in our character or our relationships. As if the initial pain wasn't enough, we take it further. We cross the line, making ourselves our own worst enemy by acting out in a way that's destructive or by playing the role of a victim. Instead, we could have chosen to be part of the solution. Or how about the person who breaks the rules or sloughs at work or school? Consequently, they get fired, expelled, or they have to work overtime. They now have more rules and life is harder as they are having to make up for the losses. Now they are looking for a new job, or they're grounded or have less time with friends or their phone to focus on school. They may have many excuses, but the bottom line is that they are responsible for the losses and the consequences that follow. They are the one that crossed the line. More common is when we don't take responsibility for our temper, choices, decisions, and blame someone or something, whether it be the traffic, long lines, our boss, our spouse, our friends, our parents, or our children, convincing ourselves that we are a victim. When we do this, we no longer able to see clearly or be happy or grow or change. The moment we pass the buck or play the role of a victim, even if we are a victim, we have become a part of the problem. We have become our own worst enemy. Remember, being a victim is entirely different than playing the role of a victim. One is a choice and one isn't. And we can't forget forgiveness. Anyone who has dealt with forgiveness learns that eventually, if we don't forgive others, it cankers our own soul, not theirs. It's a self-inflicting wound. Another way that we become our own worst enemy, and one that has become all too common and almost championed in some circles, is the constant flow of negativity. Naturally, we don't agree with all that we see or read. However, instead of using the delete button or taking a moment to try to further understand, there are those who have made it a hobby to criticize, minimize, and scrutinize every point of view that is different than their own. Now, obviously, there's no fault in having or even stating an opposing view. But when one is so consumed with negativity and impulsive judgments, it prevents them from understanding, empathizing, showing compassion, growing, and loving, therefore making themselves the enemy, not the person or the thing that they're opposing. They become a part of the problem, not a part of the solution. We see this a lot with people who are anti-anything. I don't care if it's anti-religion, anti-church, or anti the other political party, you name it. When people spend their energy, their posts on social media, their podcast, their lives with a platform of being anti, they are the one that suffers. They lose so much in the process. They become their own worst enemy. I am convinced that being negative is one of the plagues of our day. While we feel emboldened in the moment and are focused on the person or principle behind our anger, we often fail to see the damage it's doing to our own soul. We lose peace, objectivity, wisdom, feelings of appreciation and love, all while distancing ourselves from goodness and the spirit of kindness. Many years ago, a large manufacturing plant across the street from our house exploded from an electrical short, sending our house on fire. We finally were able to extinguish the fire after much loss. The owner of the plant would not take responsibility and insisted that we take him to court if we wanted to try to recoup any of our losses. While it was a clear-cut case as to who was to blame, I remember my dad making it very clear to me that he was not going to spend a minute in a lawsuit. He explained that while we would most likely retrieve our financial losses, it would not be worth it to spend so many months of our lives in a negative venture. I was focused on justice, while my dad was focused on peace. I learned a great lesson that day. Now, of course, this is not to say when it is or isn't okay to file a lawsuit, but to the bigger issue of negativity and the price we pay to our soul when we engage. Unfortunately, it has become common and almost routine for many to be negative on social media. People usually feel encouraged as they post something negative on the internet, and then someone likes it or agrees with them. So now they feel validated and justified. Their fire is fueled and more life has been pumped into their feelings of rage than they ever started with. I remember a pregnant woman who was offended by something a relative had said about her weight gain. She posted the comment on Facebook asking if anyone else thought that it was inappropriate or offensive too. Now, obviously she had hurt feelings to begin with. But after reading everybody's comment who agreed with her, she felt justified and now she really had hurt feelings. She crossed the line. She became her own worst enemy. She made it worse. She became a part of the problem, not a part of the solution. When we dwell on the negative, whether it be our upbringing, our job, other people, our competitors, our teachers or leaders, or anyone else, we are not able to move forward, be grateful, or feel peace. Life is hard enough, and challenging as it is, let's not be a part of the problem by going negative or playing the role of a victim and making things worse than they are. Let's be a part of the solution. There are a lot of things we can't control, but this is something that we can. Just to give you an example, I met an amazing teenager in Boise, Idaho. She was mature beyond her years, but best of all, she didn't play the role of a victim, and she saw herself as a part of the solution in all that she did. I will never forget hearing how when she and her friends excitedly arrived at girls' camp one summer, and instantly they scouted out the facilities, and of course they ran to the bathrooms to check them out. Well, to their surprise, they found that whoever was there before them had smeared poop, or number 2 as we used to call it, all over the walls, the toilets, the sinks, and everywhere. They were without a doubt a victim of poop smearing. But would they choose to play the role of a victim? Not for a second. Without hesitation, this girl said, "Let's get our gloves on and clean this up." Even their leaders were in shock. Surely there were 1 or 2 of them that were ready to groan and complain. But needless to say, they cleaned it up and had a great week at girls' camp. They were a part of the solution. They were able to be happy and move forward versus making it worse by going negative or spending the week upset or blaming whomever. Whenever I even think of complaining, I think of these young women and am reminded that regardless whose fault it is, we still need to take responsibility if we want to move forward and be happy. So I hope you will join me this year by taking responsibility for our attitude and behavior. It will minimize our trials, I promise you that. We'll still have challenges and life will get hard at times and we will still have loss and disappointment. But let's not make the pain any greater or the burden any heavier by crossing the line and playing the role of a victim. It is then that we become our own worst enemy. Let's stay positive, give others the benefit of the doubt, be a lifter, and take responsibility for our own attitude and behavior. And then, without a doubt, this year will be one with a whole lot of happiness and growth, regardless the challenges we face. Well, I hope you are as excited about this year as I am. Have a great day, and thanks so much for listening.